everybody.
Is this Van Halen?
Yeah, that's kind of ancient Van Halen. When is this anyway?
That's who I suspected.
Yeah, it's just tribute to Eddie Van Halen. You know, I mean, when did he die? Yesterday? Day before?
Pretty recently.
Yeah, like last 48 hours. I can't remember exactly if it was yesterday. It was all blurry yesterday. Anyway.
That was a decade ago with how time is these days.
Exactly. Anyway, yeah, that's my Eddie Van Halen tribute. I'm also trying to run an experiment to see if I get a takedown notice on this. But I'd like to say, and this is just to sort of prove the point, I'd like to encourage everybody to like listen to Van Halen, buy their albums, listen on Spotify, whatever, wherever you listen to your music. I'd like to promote their product. And then apparently there's a solid chance I'll be shut down for making that promotional attempt. But there you go.
How dare you try and get more people interested in Van Halen?
Yeah, we'll talk about it later on when we talk about copyright law. I've got a video that I posted down in the schedule from Rick Beato, who's talking about how a reaction, what do they call it, like a response video, guys? That you know, they do their reactions, and these guys were doing a reaction video to Phil Collins' "In the Air Tonight," which is an absolute classic. And then, because of their massive following, "In the Air Tonight" actually charted again, and like hit number 2 on iTunes or something, or whatever I'm not even sure what the metric is, but literally like on one day it actually hit like number 2. And so like, and this is bad. This is costing you money.
Is this a salsa? Oh.
Wait, hang on. Hey, hot mic.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Donald, you got a hot mic. We're listening to you eat your chips.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, man. Hey, it happens, you know, but
The first thing he said made sense.
Oh, wait, it wasn't Donald. No, who had
this is salsa.
Oh, who had the chips and salsa? Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, yeah, anyway. Yeah. I don't know who that was, but the sound seems to have gone away. Okay, hey, everybody. Okay, here's my question. Yeah, actually, I like yes, thanks, Michelle. Little classic Van Halen, man. It does get you kind of bumped and pumped. So, hey, yesterday, some of you, a couple of you, I think, are in my other class. But I wanted to share with you, should I share? So yesterday was the television shoot. And I did my thing. And I've got a picture for you. Boom. That was me yesterday.
What were you shooting for, or is that still a...
No, so I can actually talk about it. It was The Chosen, season 2 of The Chosen, and I'm a religious bad guy, aka one of the Pharisees.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's me, man, rocking the Pharisee look. I've got a lot of the attributes required to be a Pharisee. I've got the beard, I got the white hair, I got the attitude. And I had the neck surgery, so I'm stiff-necked, and I have pretty much everything it takes to do the duty. So it was cool, by the way. It was all right. I had a good experience. Surprisingly exhausting for as little as you actually do, but it was good. I'm should be back. On set, I just don't know when. It's kind of like schedule sort of shifts and adjust, but I think there's a pretty solid chance anyway. You know, I didn't disrupt anything or like blow the set up or, you know, run around or make noises or like look at the camera or anything dumb like that. But Yeah, no, I did not get any. I didn't get any autographs, and
So you didn't
yeah.
say these pretzels are making me thirsty?
What's that?
Did you have one line and it was these pretzels are making me thirsty?
Wait, is that a line from something, or that I'm missing the
Yeah,
reference?
it's from Seinfeld.
Okay, okay. Here's my confession. I never ever watched a single full episode of Seinfeld.
Oh man.
Sorry. Okay.
In
Okay, are you ready? But okay, but Jonathan Rumi, actor who plays Jesus, I was like 6 feet straight to his left for a chunk of the day. Anyway, if anybody's like fans of the show, we can talk later. But anyway. Yeah, no, actually, so looking at the camera and running around and blowing things up are kind of equivalent. If you're background slash extra, and your job is to be a credible part of the scene, you don't want to be like, huh, like you've got to still be in character. And you can totally blow the scene just by, there's so many ways to blow it up. So, ratio of time, working to get into time. I would say that my involvement in, there's one scene that there was a couple of scenes that I was involved in, but there was one scene where we were probably in that zone for 2 hours ish. Yeah, I'll say 2 hours. And that in the final, in the series, when it airs, that will probably occupy 2 minutes of an episode. So anyway, enough about that. But it was cool, and then that was actually me in costume. We tweaked it a little bit before I was, live in the synagogue kind of thing. But yeah, okay. Let me see. But the thing is, the reason I think it was going really slow is it was a scene with a lot of people. There were like 50 people in the room. 40 of them were actors. The set's near Goshen, Utah, South Utah County, past Santaquin. And, you know what I mean? That many people, it's just slower. Yeah, it is Tyson, the one that's owned by the LDS Church. The same church set, yeah. So anyway, just sharing my little first time working on a television series. So that's kind of cool. Okay, let's talk. So, are you ready to talk social media? I brought it after the last time, after you guys showed up. You were like grandkids that I got 14 grandkids, right? So you're like the grandkids that show up. Everyone's like pounding down energy drinks, and they've got like Sharpies and razor blades, and then they just like descend into the living room and spread out throughout the house. Yeah, that's kind of what that Google Doc was like. So I hope you had a good time with it. What I want to do today is actually, I am a glutton for punishment. And by the way, yeah, the too many videos thing, I just want to say, we'll talk after. But I want to just say this production was different than, I'm with you completely. And this production was different than anything I've ever seen. Which is why, it's part of why I'm involved. Okay. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to slide this over. Whoa, who reverted the doc, man? Who reverted the doc? Fess up. Okay. But, yeah, so whoever reverted the doc, let's revert it back to clean. Because I want to do some stuff today and actually talk about the things. So if you wouldn't mind, I think hang on a second. Did I drop the link into did I drop the link into Discord? No, that was the link to the picture. Okay, hang on a second. I'm just going to grab the link. And, okay, actually, I didn't have to take it off to do that. Okay. Oh, you dropped it. Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Is that we're still the same, right? Yep. I was just looking,
Yeah, I think so.
and the link I was just about to paste is exactly the same, so we're good. Yeah. So here's what I want to do. I want to walk through it, and yeah, I'm gonna ask you, just in the interest of like relative efficiency. I want you to, like, yeah, thanks. with the reverting. I want to say one other thing about the class. This is kind of like my first time going through this thing, which means I'm doing a lot of creation in real time, as you know. One of the things that I think happens is that you guys are, I just mean not you in particular, but just students. You get really used to canned classes and canned presentations with slides, and I'm good with slides as a way of embodying the talking points. You know what I mean? To kind of just embody ideas. It's like, this one's a really good one. Let's not forget it. Or this, when we're done here next semester, they'll probably have a set of slides that I'll create that'll be based around the taxonomy we're creating, but we're on the leading edge of that. So rather than trying to just build it all in a canned way, what I'm trying to do with you is just do the sort of adventurous thing and do a little bit of invention and creation in real time. So if it seems unstructured, like, seriously, if anybody, when it's like SRI time, if anybody's going to be like, who's going to like dare to be offended, that it was like, or dare to be like shocked that this was unstructured. He didn't seem to know where he was going. Correct. And that's why I'm enlisting you, and why we're kind of doing this thing more as an adventure. And then as it moves on, it's going to get more and more canned, it's going to get more and more archival of great ideas that I don't want to forget, that'll come in, and there'll be a little more structure. I still like to do this less structured. And when we get a year from now and we're hopefully back to face, spring semester, we're still online streaming, but a year from now, when we're back to face, in some respects that gives way to a lot more engagement, just because there's just facial, you can see the faces. So, all right. So what I wanted to try to do was go back to this, and in a relatively short amount of time, I want to just go back through, and I want to throw, so I guess what I'm just saying, the conclusion of that thought is, just continue to appreciate your patience. If it feels like goofy and unstructured, yeah, it is. I still want you to be a better writer. I still want you to read the stuff I post, watch the stuff, at least have some time with your head around it, and then pose questions as we go that are interesting and thoughtful. Who knows? In a year, there might be a quiz or an exam. I don't know. But all I really care about is that you're having a good experience with it and thinking a little bit. And I hope that's been the case. I want to talk about, one of the things I want to talk about, just to be thinking about, is relative to social media. I talked a bit about Shirky. Yeah, Eric. Read the bloody syllabus, Eric. Yeah, and so Franklin said, thanks, man. So Franklin just said, so much of philosophy is perspective. It'd be destructive to have too much structure. And I think there's certainly an element of that. Unless you're going to do like structured study of philosophy, then you got to get into, predicate logic and do and then study the great philosophers and tear apart the arguments and do, certain kinds of things, right? But I feel like we're much more applied here. And I would just rather have dinner party conversation that is converging to some ideas. So, and we talked about Clay Shirky, right? And here comes everybody. And this idea that I was curious if anybody has any thoughts about, given your relative youth, most of you are in your 20s, and probably most of you in your mid 20s. If there's a little bit of a revelation about the idea that the web used to be a thing that was pretty much there were the producers and there were the consumers, and now we're living in a world in which basically everybody is a producer. Is that like a novel idea to you, or is that something you've already really kind of perceived and understood what a quantum shift that was from even the mid 90s over the next, call it decade, really, where we shifted, and then another decade where we shifted from entering the notion of a participatory web and then emerging much more into what we think of as social media, which is kind of like the participatory web, kind of on steroids. So any thoughts? So Jacob, you were those of us in our 30s were not even mentioned. Yes, you were, indirectly by saying most of you are in your 20s. It means the rest of you are not. So you're in that other group. Just do the pie chart on that bad boy. No, what do you? I'm just curious what your experience is about. Is that a novel idea, or is that something you walk around aware of how dramatically transformed the world has been in, from 95 to 05, from 05 to, let's call it 2010, 2015. And I don't know what we've turned into now, a crap show. I'm not even sure. But any ideas? I know you're still debating the whole over under 30 thing. Yeah, any thoughts on that? Any other thoughts on that, Trevor? The Social Dilemma, I posted a link. Okay, actually, this is a question. I haven't watched it yet, even though I have Netflix. I know not all of you have Netflix or even access to Netflix. So I've hesitated to assign it because I don't know if there's anybody that can't get to Netflix, you know what I mean, to watch it. But I don't even know. I just have what I've heard about it and read about it. I haven't even had a chance myself yet to watch it. But the real question is anybody, in a position where you would not have access to Netflix to get to it? Piggyback on somebody's account. We got a few votes for everybody ought to watch it. And my sense, even not having watched it, there is the free trial thing. I don't know about the Great Hack, but I'm making a note to myself to check it out. Whoever you are, what's the Great Hack about? We could do a group watch and we could stream it. That's true. Ooh, that's actually true. I just can't, stream that to YouTube. But we could do, yeah, right. But we could just get together at a certain time on Discord and watch it together. Do a watch party that way. No, it'd have to be somebody. It would have to be somebody running Discord from Windows.
I can do that.
Yeah, so we could do that. Yeah, because you don't have to stream to Discord. All you have to do is just share the screen.
Yeah, the Great Hack was about the company Cambridge Analytica.
Oh man, right?
Social media and the 2016 presidential election and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love the topic. One of the interesting questions with that and the Social Dilemma, again, which I haven't seen either of these, is the Great Hack accessible on Netflix as well?
It was.
Okay.
I saw it recommended after I watched The Social Dilemma last night.
Okay.
So it should be on Netflix.
Yeah. One of the interesting questions, and this is also part of what I'd like to be talking about, is even these reports, and I've got a few that I've also posted. Like some CBS reports that I kind of liked, but your mileage might vary on that, right? You might be feeling like, well, that was really biased, and And the truth of the matter is that everything, that is a production of any kind in the world of media is going to inherently have some kind of bias. There is no way to get around that. And I feel like in the polarization that we're experiencing kind of culturally and socially, courtesy of social media largely, that's a factor. But I think that the key is to be cognizant of it, so you could actually watch it, enjoy it, get something out of it, but also, be in a position to, parse out of it and understand and recognize where there is potential bias, in presentation. And I just think that's an inherent part of the deal. And so in my mind, since no production is ever going to pass a purity test, you have to kind of grow the ability to see something that you don't agree with all of it, shock and horror, that you would be exposed to ideas you don't agree with, and then grow the ability to think reasonably and rationally about it. So you can go, I disagree with that. So that's my thought on that. But I will scout the Great Hack and I'll still watch The Social Dilemma. But yeah, the other question I had asked was whether this idea that you live in this world, the fish doesn't know it's in water. The 20-something or 30-something or 40-something, if there are any 50-somethings, also you. But the idea that you live in this world and here comes everybody feels redundant, because it's like an essay about how we have freedom because we beat the Nazis in World War II. And you're like, yeah, of course, that's reality, What's your perception? Is this just the way the world always has been? Or did you experience in your own lives a pivot of some kind, to recognize that the world shifted and became a participatory world in terms of online? As Shirky called them, the producers formerly known as the audience.
I don't think we've always had the social pressure to be online, right? Like kids in middle school and high school now pretty much have to be on Facebook, to be in or popular, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have that as a kid. We had the internet and computers and stuff, and I was fortunate enough to be able to access it, but it's not like that was widespread or common or like a thing everybody desired, because not everybody had access to it. Not everybody's family had a computer or AOL for that matter, right? Whereas now it just seems like it is the default. It's required to be on social networks of some kind.
Yeah. And I first saw that with my own kids, where it was like, my son's like phone is buzzing, right? And then he's like, oh, my friends keep bugging me, This is like before smartphones even, right? And I'd be like, well, look, just don't, you have to respond, right? Silence your phone, put it in your bedroom, leave, you don't, And I just remember one of my sons, it was like, no, they know I'm here, like this, it's like that pressure to be online, right? And I was like, nah, they don't actually know, like the notion of, well, can't you just say later, yeah, I was away from my phone? Is that, there's like that pressure that kind of showed up. We have, and by the way, the verbal is also good. The comments, I'd always have to like back up. Yeah, the Tamagotchi. The social pressure to have a Tamagotchi. So yeah, Eric said the internet's always let anyone be a producer, but I think it was fairly recently that everyone was involved with the internet to make anyone a producer. Yeah, I think that's real. And you've seen that, I guess, in your own lives. You guys are, for the most part, less than half my age. So my perspective spans it all, and it's hard for me to differentiate, what you were going through. So yeah, Jacob said, I think various things really shook up the world around the 2000s. Even just online shopping and the .com bubble felt like a big deal. than Wikipedia. I don't know when Wikipedia came out. I don't remember. Seems like it was around then. Somebody wants to look that up. We have Tamagotchi, loss, regret. But the Tamagotchi, right. So I think what Michelle was saying is the Tamagotchi was still like a social phenomenon, right? So Dahlia said, I remember when not everyone could really participate in the same way, but I still don't participate, so I get more content, but I still don't feel like a producer. Okay, now this relates to an interesting question, which is, I've seen more and more and more of your generation walking away from social media, right? So let me ask you this. For those, I'll throw it out as two questions. For those walking away from social media, right? Some of my own kids are just like, yeah, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not, I'm not on anything. If you want to talk to me, text me or call me. Like, what? And I have some kids who they won't respond to a text. You just have to call them, which is like, what are we, is this the 70s? What are we back to that? And those of us that started off back there, it's like your vinyl records, right? Those of us that lived and grew up with vinyl records, with the pops and the clicks and the hisses, and then all of a sudden CDs came out, and now it's like vinyl. And we're like, yeah, we lived with vinyl, and that's all we had, and CDs were amazing. I don't know if it's nostalgia or what, but I feel like there's a similar thing that those of us that lived in a disconnected world and now have that, maybe glom onto it a little bit stronger, and you guys that kind of grew up with full connectivity or high connectivity are more able to kind of just step away. Does that make sense? You understand the phenomenon? So I'm behind on my reading here. Let me catch up. Keep going.
Question.
Who is that, Devin?
Yeah, it's Devin. So, is the question basically like why do people our age walk away from it?
Yeah, I'm really curious about two things. For those of you that have walked away from it, why, right? What was your experience? Why do that? And for those that haven't, why haven't you? And those in the middle ground. And then the backdrop to that is that a lot of times the older generations, there's some technology that showed up when you were kind of coming of age, maybe 30s and 40s or whatever, that kind of changed the bad parts of the old world, and then you never let it go. Like for my parents' generation, it was television. They grew up with radio. My mom grew up listening to the Green Hornet, on the radio, these like The Shadow, these classic radio. That was her childhood. And then television showed up when she was probably in her 20s, 30s-ish, and color television when she's like in her 40s. That generation, who those people are today, like 70s and 80s, they typically, I'm going to generalize, but I think this is probably true. They typically have homes and living rooms that are centered around a large television set, but it's like the central feature with like the two comfy chairs for mom and dad to sit like right in front of that television set. That's like their central world. My generation, a large chunk of my generation was like, screw that. I'm not having a television in my living room. Like we can have a family room and we'll put it there and we can watch sports or watch a movie, and we'll go to the TV room
then
to watch.
My family with a TV in every single room.
My mom had the TV. My mom had a TV in every single room, and this was in the CRT days. This is before flat panel. My mom had a TV in every room, little portable one. Yeah. And in the bathroom, there was one about the size of my iPhone. There was a small portable television on the counter in the bathroom at her house.
Wow.
Wow. So the screen was this big. And I'm like...
So it's basically like we're come full circle, like now just looking at our phones for half of our media. So.
Right. But it's not really full circle. It's like the same cycle. It just repeats generation upon generation with different technology.
Well, this one we can have in our pocket and everywhere. So.
Right. That's right. So her generation hangs on to that TV. My generation starts to go away from it, and the one behind me, it's accessible, but it's not like the central furniture piece of your living
Right.
room decor.
So to go back to the, I'm in the middle, I think. Um, so it's almost like more than anything, I would love to never log into Facebook ever again. I hate Facebook at the same time that I'm using it regularly.
Yeah.
Partially because I know, so I do have LinkedIn as well now, but I know some employers do care about Facebook, mainly to just see who you are, not really care about like what too much what you post, just like I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. Some
but,
feel for you, right?
yeah, but that's like one of the most minor reasons. Basically, there's some people in other countries that I can only stay in contact with because I have Facebook.
That's true.
And then there are some services I have that require me to have a Facebook, or I can no longer use those services. So it's kind of like you're locked in and you have no choice unless you want to give up a lot.
Right.
And then but I think the reason to leave is it's more stressful than anything. Well, not than anything, just more stressful. It brings like less joy than it does happiness, I think. I mean, less, more.
Yeah, no, right, more, right, more
happiness.
stress than happiness, or right, because
Yeah,
that's
and so
to me that's
it's
the
just
trade-off.
basically everybody is like basically an a-hole online. There's some cool stuff that I like to read on there. There's like a couple groups. I think that's the best thing they've implemented so far is like you could join groups that are interested in some of the same stuff, and that's where most of the good things I find
Yeah.
are.
So
But it's basically just like it's like I don't know. It's almost like it's worse than going to high school and dealing with like social
Yeah.
life of high school all over again.
yeah, for
And
those who are gone already, and by the way, if you can jump on the voice part, I'm just backlogged because I don't want to break this flow, but there's some backed up comments I want to get to. But for those that are
it's so
gone,
bad.
especially,
to me, it's weird. I don't know if anybody else feels this way. It's like so like if somebody offered me a job at Facebook, I would feel like I had an actual moral dilemma. Like, should I even take the offer? It's like, well, you better pay me hundreds of thousands of dollars because I'm selling my soul to work here, basically. It's weird.
yeah, no,
It's like, but I don't feel that way about other big companies that have just as big an impact. But for some reason,
Right.
Facebook has this like negative connotation to me. Like, I
Yeah.
really
So I want-
dislike it.
I want to hear from somebody that has walked away from social media basically, and what kind of what you were going through, like why that was a thing.
I've taken like breaks. I'm kind of in the same boat as Devin. It's hard to not have a Facebook, like just because I bought like the Oculus Quest, right? You go sign on to that and you can't actually use it unless you have a Facebook account. So I spend hundreds of dollars and I can't use this technology because I don't have a Facebook, right?
Right.
But to my original point, like I will take breaks and I will heavily police my consumption of social media. It's just unhealthy, right? Like
Yeah.
you're seeing everybody's curated highlight reel, and you're not seeing the downs or the struggles of what it took people to get that job
Right.
or whatever accomplishment that they're showing you. You're just seeing the end result, and you're sort of unfortunately, human default, I think, is to just sort of like compare, and you're like, oh, why is this person doing so well, and I'm over here just garbage because I don't have X, Y, Z, and you're
Right.
just constantly comparing yourself to other people's successes,
And
all
especially
the
with
time.
the so-called influencers, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's the term, the influencers, especially Instagram, I think. What are the main platforms where you would say there are influencers?
Definitely Instagram,
Definitely Instagram.
maybe Twitch.
Okay. And I don't do Twitch. I don't think I've ever, but I'm not a modern gamer.
It
I'm a
definitely
has-been.
started for gaming, but it's, you can go find a Twitch channel where somebody is streaming themselves doing pottery, right? Like it's starting to grow more and just be a streaming platform rather than just a video game streaming platform.
Okay, gotcha.
I would still say it's heavily targeted and primarily used by video game streamers and people who watch them.
Yeah.
But they're starting to get more and more stuff on there. But I would say for sure Instagram is definitely, and maybe what's TikTok. Those are probably the two like influencer hot spots or platforms, whatever you want to call them.
Would you put? I was actually, because Delia had put a comment in earlier, about Twitch and mentioned Twitch, which I think, again, I've never been on it. I've typically tried to just get on all the different things just to try just to see what they are and to have some literacy, so they're not just you kids with your technology. I try not to be that, and then get off my lawn, right? So I try to be more aware, but it seems like, certainly TikTok, the short video, formerly Vine, right? That was a thing. And, but, and it's almost like the video, it's not a podcast, but it's kind of like short video blogging, right? Video tweets, kind of. The other thing that you have, and some people have written about this, there was a guy, what was his name? His last name was G-E-E, but I did it when I had my podcast a while back, and I think he wrote a book called The Dumbest Generation. Now, there are some interesting issues about the online generation. Is it bad to be reliant? A few of you posted the memes and video and they're memes, but about the teachers telling you it's not like you're going to have a calculator in your pocket, and you're like, oh yeah. And that's why you had to learn all this stuff, etc. Are we better? It's always to me a question of, are we better or worse? But you have to take the longer view. You know what I mean? We could say there are people who have argued that we're all dumber because of Google, because you just look stuff up. But I remember as a kid, if you didn't know something, I had to get on my bike and ride it a half a mile to the city library, where there was this out-of-date Encyclopedia frickin' Britannica or something. Look it up, you know what I mean? I hope the page wasn't torn out. That was, and then if you didn't find it there, you're just like, well, I guess I'm just going to be ignorant about that for the next 20 years. There was like no way to know stuff. And today, you're in a, like I talked about when we talked about the orders of ignorance, and the person most likely to say, I don't know, right? You're in a group of people and it always boggles my mind in 2020 that 5 people are in a group going, yeah, who was that quarterback of that? Everyone's like, yeah, I don't remember, and everyone goes around and nobody knows. And then they're like, oh, well. And you're like, if only there was some way that we could query the knowledge of the ages within 2 minutes and know, I don't understand why you don't look it up today. It's like right there. But then that's information overload. When I was a kid, you had time to process because there was not as much knowledge actually cluttering your head, right? And today it's like it's instant gratification on the knowledge front, and your brain's just maybe I don't know, is it clogged up? There's also much higher anxiety rates. Let me throw that out, right? There's higher depression and anxiety. That's a multivariate analysis. That's a very complex analysis, right? But I do wonder, and others have wondered and done studies and things to try to look at, is the constant social media, the constant staring at the screen. Go ahead. I'm saying too much, and I want to hear the comments.
In that same vein, I remember, as a kid, you'd play like Pokemon, and then whatever schmuck would just come up to you and be like, oh, to get this thing, you have to jump up and down 3 times, send a letter in the mail on Tuesday, and then, eat a bowl of candy. And you have no idea to know whether or not he's lying to you, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, well, I don't know any better, so this must be true. Why would you lie to me?
Right. But then the interesting thing, Trevor, is then would you say in the era of constant information, are we more or less vulnerable as a society, as individuals within a society, to say conspiracy theories? Or, and I'm talking about the false ones. There actually are conspiracies. That's an actual thing. And a theory about a conspiracy that's true is still a conspiracy theory. But I'm talking about the cray-cray. You know what I mean? I'm talking about I don't know what the moonshot was that was faked. I don't know. Pick your what Finland is not a real country. I think that's actually one.
I think that's a responsible use problem. We have this great tool at our hands, and we don't use it responsibly. People don't critically think about things like, oh, Finland isn't real. Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to check it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Like, stuff like that is
Right.
definitely a problem from it. But kind of on the other point of that is, yeah, sure, I don't know how to do as many, like, handyman things as somebody from generations prior would, but I feel pretty confident that, if my toilet breaks, I could go look up a YouTube video and figure out how to do it.
That's true, right? That's true. You have YouTube videos to figure out the thing that you go to.
I don't need to know as much because I know that I have a resource that can teach me the things that I need to know when I need to know them.
Right. Well, these are tremendous thoughts. Anybody else, or those that are like, no, damn it, I'm in, I'm staying. Is there anybody that's like, no, this really meets my needs? I'm not going anywhere. I like this. This is blessing my life. And we have a reasonably anonymous here as well. So if you want to advocate that position, yeah, Mason.
I've got a thought on that. So the whole idea of responsible use, you're kind of walking uphill against the design of these tools.
Right?
And the overwhelming effect is that predominantly it's not used responsibly.
Right.
And it favors disinformation over information.
Yep.
And that's kind of what they really talk about in The Social Dilemma is we're pitting humans up against an AI that even us as programmers can't fully grasp the working of why it makes those decisions.
Right.
And we're pitting our poor little lizard brain against that and expecting us to be able to stand a fair fight. And that's just not realistic. So yeah, I think that's a good point, Mason, is that it's like it's a responsible use problem, but it's also a problem with we have a group of developers and designers and people at these huge companies that have so much control and power on how people interact with their stuff.
That's right.
And their main function is to make money, not because care about the human.
Because of the evolution of the more or less monopolistic positions, you know what I mean? And that's another discussion. I realized that, back in the day you kind of had Microsoft or you had IBM, and there were these monopolistic, concerns, right? And today it's like we interestingly have you have Twitter and Facebook and Amazon and I'm leaving somebody out on the monopolies thing. There's at least a couple that can. Who would you throw in there on the presumable monopolies at the present time? Windows still has a very, very big sort of operating system monopoly. It's not absolute though. You know what I mean? I don't mean that in the pure sense. I just felt like there were four that were in my head. Suddenly, I'm Rick Perry at the debate a few years back.
Yeah.
Facebook, Amazon. Well, who am I missing?
Apple,
Twitter, Facebook. Well, they're big, but are they? Google. No, thank you. How could I forget Google? Yeah, right. And then even when we talk about Apple, you don't think of them as a global monopoly, but talk to Fortnite. I don't remember the name, the manufacturers right in front of. That's a real thing going on, right? I wanted to say this. You have to understand too that social media is designed to be addictive. That's not original with me. That's known from the get-go. And the measurement that they use to talk about this is called engagement, right? Which means the more time you are engaged with it, that's the best, right? Well, it turns out that in most cases, there are things that are immediately stimulating, right, to the mind. And there are things that are like healthier, but longer term, but slower. You know what I mean? Like, for example, you want to buzz, you pound down your Dr. Pepper or your cup of coffee or your cappuccino or your Monster, or you know what I mean. You crank down your stimulant, or you can drink some agua, and it's like, well, you know what I mean. It's like a slower pick me up, but you got to know it's clearly healthier in the long term, and I mean, I'm not being preachy here. I was pounding Diet Dr. Pepper before I was pounding water today, not super proud of that, but I'm just saying this is clearly a healthier option. But the Diet Dr. Pepper, which would be your carbonated beverage of choice, in my view, Dr. Pepper, nectar of the gods, case closed. Proof by authority, case closed. Don't bring your weak sauce Mountain Dew crap, whatever, over here. And certainly no Pepsi. I'm sorry, Pepsi. You try so hard for so long, and yet you're not even Coke. You know what I mean? And nobody's Dr. Pepper. So, no, where was I going? Where was I going with it? What I'm trying to say is,
how I've had that explained to me is like type 1 happiness versus type 2. Like,
okay, yeah.
Sure, I could go play a video game right now, and that would be fun for tonight. Or I could work on my compiler and keep just chipping away at that huge project, right?
Yep.
And I know for a fact that like 2 months from now, at the end of the semester, getting that compiler done is going to feel better than playing 1,000 video games, right? Like,
no, right. Well, and there's a part where that other thing occupies so much of your time and energy that you don't finish your compiler class, you don't finish the degree, and then the vector of your earning potential as a career pivots, right? One of the signs of sort of a kind of clinical sign of addictive behavior is the sacrifice of more important things for less important things, right? So if you're blowing your marriage for, because of chemical, porn addiction, or, and you're blowing off a relationship, you know what I mean? Or when you're blowing off your job because your gaming is taken over, all of those other things that we tend to think of as addictive, you don't think of anybody being addicted to like water, although I suppose it's possible. Like, I don't know. I'm just trying to say that it's a quick path to stimulation of the mind, but there's a slower path that has like this larger ultimate reward, right? So you get the compiler done and you get the degree and your vector, you're earning, 20 years from now, there's an impact of what you did, right? And all those other things are like short circuits. But I think social media falls into that same category. And I'm not, in a blanket condemnation of it. I'm just saying it's designed to be addictive. And the nature of that addictive design is that it needs to be easier that you open this up and suddenly it's like you see the Facebook page and you're like, boom, sucked in. But if it's your compiler that suddenly flashes up on your laptop screen, you're not like, oh, I got to get up. Some of you, bless your hearts. But most of us are not like, oh, I got to write that code, man. Ooh, But why is that different? You know what I mean? And at some level, it has to do with brain function. It has to do with limbic system and pleasure centers and frontal lobes and more rational long-term thinking. And there is a cognitive impact when you feed. There's a cognitive impact on brain function when you feed anybody who's feeding a steady diet of sort of the addictive things, the type 1, I guess, right? That short circuit the normal process, right? Porn over real relationships with real people. Chemical as opposed over healthy eating, exercise, those kinds of things. Gaming. I mean, I'm not trying to pick on those, either. I'm just trying to say that these are things that draw us in to addictive behaviors because they're a short circuit for the longer thing. And while social media like a Facebook can help me to like find an old friend and it's like so cool, there's still the part where you're just like, I've done it, where all of a sudden like going to bed, have the phone by the bed, that's a smart play. And then stumble onto whatever videos, Facebook decides might be interesting to me. And then the next thing you know, you burned an hour or two and you're like, I could have done a lot of productive things with that, right? But the moment just sucked me right in. And it was like, I couldn't turn away. It was a train wreck even, but I couldn't turn away. like the debates.
I think another thing that drives social media in kind of a crazy direction is that not only do the sexier clickbait things make it to the top, but then the reputableness of it is kind of all presented equally, even if the reputableness of it is not. So,
That's
like,
right.
my personal blog could appear just as legitimate as a legitimate news source
That's
to
right.
somebody on social media. And then let's say it's The Economist or something reputable. They click on it and there's a paywall. Right, but my blog's not. So that feeds it too.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, just like ease of access. Anybody can say whatever,
That's right.
and the really good stuff that is actually curated, that's worth something, costs money. I don't want to pay for a subscription. I just want to read whatever.
Yeah, the clickbait.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly right. And some of it can be interesting, and some of it is just, is just dumb, right? And I've reached the point, I don't know if you guys are at the same spot, but I've reached the point where if I hear what happened next will shock you, and it's an old technique, you understand? I mean, the evening news, the local news used to always do that, and coming up, a happy story out of Taylorsville today, as a man saves a cat from a burning car. And then the whole first segment, you're like, well, I want to see that. It's clickbait. You stick around, and they're like, when we come back from the break, we'll have the weather, we'll have sports. And today, a Taylorsville man saved a cat from a burning car, right? And then they do all that every commercial break, and you're back until they're about ready to go, and they're like, and before we let you go, Taylorsville man, yeah, that's all we got for tonight, And they spent like 10 times as much time and effort pitching the Taylorsville man saves a cat from a burning car as they did on actually giving, and then there's always some cut to some local idiot. That car was really on fire. Then that man came and the cat got out. All right, and then they're cut, boom, we're done. Cue, roll the credits. Right? I'm just saying clickbait has been around, right? How about this one? Go back to, go watch Newsies. I don't really like that musical. Can I just say it? But you're like, extra, read all about it. What is that? Right? Isn't that clickbait? It's just 1800s clickbait.
The original.
I doubt it's the original. That's the thing. I doubt it's the original. But isn't that clickbait? And isn't that was the old social media? I've seen this one. I can't find it. If somebody can find this, it would be great and drop it. But it's just a picture of like a bus, and like everybody's got, it's like from the 1800s or something. It's old anyway, 100 years ago or so. And like everyone's got their newspaper out on the morning commute on the bus or on a train, and you're like, everybody's got their faces in their phones today, and there's this picture from the 1800s or whatever it was, old, black and white, and everyone's got their newspaper up. And this kind of brings me to really one of my kind of core beliefs about life is that we really want to blame all kinds of things for why people suck, why we suck, right? Why it is that people suck. And you know why people suck? You want to hear Dr. K's theory on human suckage? You're welcome to put that in the document, okay? I feel like I've shamed you into non-document graffiti. Go easy. But Dr. K's theory of human suckage is just that humans suck by nature, and there's no government structure that will eliminate poverty. There is no program. Because humans suck. There's no way to corral the thing into some utopian non-suckage. It doesn't exist. So when you talk about technology these days, when I was a kid, well, yeah, in other words, in every generation of humanity, humans are remarkably human. Which is why I said some time back that I thought that, that average human in an average country today, placed in nearly identical situations, would act largely like the people we disdain from a generation past who did unspeakable things. I think we get arrogant. You know what I mean? We lack self-awareness. I think, in other words, I just think that humans actually do suck. I also believe in the power of humanity. You know what I mean? I believe in the inherent goodness of people on the other hand, right? Because I think we're dual characters. I think that as humans we have this dual nature, and it's a constant. I just think it's part. The human experience is a struggle to wrestle with our good and our bad that are just inherent in us. So it's not social media's fault. It's not, it's not the internet's fault. I don't think. I think that's misguided to blame a technology. If anything, the internet just sped things up. It accelerated, right? Made things easier to get to, but didn't change the draw to get there. Does that make sense? And if anything, it brought out more of the great things, really, right? Some of the greatest things, in the history of humanity, like 2-day delivery. Thank you, Amazon Prime. I'm joking. That is a great thing, but it's not the category I'm talking about. No, there's tremendous things that have happened because of the ability to have that outreach, to connect people, to do amazing things. And then just like horrible, horrible things, right? They both exist and they're both accelerated by virtue of this technology, which is remarkable in that respect. But then I think what has to happen is that we have to pull back and check it. When I was a parent of little kids, you would limit television time because it just seems so unhealthy,
I think that in some, I agree, but I also to some extent disagree. I think that there's laws around advertising to kids on TV. You can't if it's a kids channel, there's regulations and laws on what you can advertise to a child, right? Mm-hmm. For a very good reason, you shouldn't be showing elementary school kids advertisements for tobacco,
alcohol, ads, whatever,
alcohol, right? Because they're impressionable and they're young. And I think that what we forget is that adults are impressionable too, and humans in general are always going to have this, I don't want to call it a shortcoming, but this bias towards the easier thing, which unfortunately is the clickbait or the fake news or the false whatever, or the thing that rustles my jimmies, right?
Did you just make that up? The rustling of the jimmies? Did you just make that up, or is that an expression? Is that an expression?
That is an internet expression.
How did I miss it? Dang it!
It's a good one. I don't know.
No, there's no question that that's a good one.
But
I'm writing it down to do research later. I gotta go do some deep research.
I'm glad that I have introduced you to this internet.
No, this is fantastic. Yeah, I'm glad that you've taught me about the internet. Yeah, but by the way, Trevor, so far we don't actually disagree. You haven't said anything I don't agree with.
Yeah, I think what we lack in technology is to my point of television channels being held responsible for what they show to the viewers. Yeah, we don't have that as much on the internet. You have
that's true.
A bunch of dudes at Facebook, maybe not just dudes, but probably mostly dudes, who are in charge of what gets shown to, I don't know, millions of people now. How many people have a phone, and how many phones are just loaded with Facebook, and how many people are on Facebook, right?
Yep.
We don't have that same level of scrutiny as other mediums would.
I think that's right. I think it's right. And I think it's a problem of identity, right? Of identity verification. In the home, for the most part, right, you got babysit when you've got kids, and you've got even the babysitter okay, now the TV needs to be off by 9. There's some level of control. Or, I just think that my own opinion is that I see little kids with their faces in screens, doing whatever they're doing. This is not fully social media, but it really relates. And I'm just and I'm not just playing the old man thing. Maybe I am a little bit, but I'm playing the cognitive development thing. You know what I mean? You're like white.
I have a hard time. How can I expect a kid, as an adult, I have a hard time controlling the amount of time I spend on Reddit.
That's right.
That's legitimately hard for me. How could I expect a child to be better at that than I am?
No, that's right. That's right. And as somebody, I don't remember who said it, but the notion of, the myth of adult, I've always, felt that for a long time. It's an adult film. It's adult beverage. This is adult, whatever. This is adult something. And usually it's, there are elements of that I think are like truly, it's kind of age. There are things that I think are more age appropriate. You know what I mean? You're not going to let your 3-year-old watch, YouTube videos of open heart surgery. I think that would be horribly inappropriate. There's no context for a 3-year-old to grasp, you know what I mean? A picture of somebody's heart and whatever. Clearly, that's an example of an adult appropriate. I would call that an adult film. From strictly what the definition means. Usually we say adult beverage, we mean it's something addictive. Adult film, it's something addictive. We usually refer to addictive things because I guess adults are, well, they clearly are better, and it has to do with brain development, right? The frontal lobes don't develop until you're in your mid-20s. And that's the reasonable, rational decision making. And until then, the limbic system is driving a lot of the stuff. Some of you I know actually have studied that kind of stuff, and I'm sure know more about it than I do. But I want to do this thing because I got a few minutes. I just wanted to hit some of the comments because I know that just kind of for the record in terms of the YouTube. So Mason had said 34 minutes ago, The Social Dilemma, the movie, remarked that kids these days are fragile, afraid to get out of their comfort zones. I think maybe, and I agree with that. I think maybe because they spend literally hours every day farming social opinion. It relates to that echo chamber that we talked about, right? I can craft, back in the day, the big three networks, you got to pick your news from one of those 3 guys, pretty much guys, reading the news in the 70s, right? That was your source. And they had to appeal to a wide swath of America. And so they tended to be really much more balanced. And America was much more balanced. You had a lot more, if you look at, graphs of political polarization, for example, in, bills in the Senate, for example, or in Congress, and like who's voting for whose bills. And it kind of goes like this, 40 years ago or 50 years ago, whatever. And it just slowly starts to move until it just almost goes completely like this. So it's no longer, suddenly the notion of whose party, suddenly platform, if everybody's a party line vote, party becomes really important. And then you get real idiots, because I got to vote for that idiot because they're red or blue depending upon what my thing is, right? Everything turns into a party line vote. That's to me very unusual, right? And to the point where you have, I think we maybe talked about last time, in the Democratic primary stuff, Biden was accused of voting alongside of or co-sponsoring some bills with some historically bad whatever. I don't even remember the exact details. I think they were maybe segregationists or Republicans that I wouldn't agree with today. By any, I don't, probably maybe none of us would. But the point just being that back in that day, 40 plus years ago, when Biden's a young senator, the ethic was, you had Orrin Hatch, famously of Utah, and Ted Kennedy. Yet Orrin Hatch was probably one of the most socially conservative senators, in his younger years in the Senate, and Ted Kennedy, who was clearly one of the most socially liberal senators, right? And they co-sponsored bills together, which today it would be like, Senator Hatch, isn't it true that you partnered with Ted Kennedy? That would be the big ad. You know what I mean? Orrin Hatch sells out Utah. Or Ted Kennedy partners with the Antichrist. It's like, but aren't there actually things we agree with? That we ought to partner with? And then, I think that guy's so wrong over here. You know what I mean? In other words, nobody passes the purity test, in my view. Nobody can pass a personal purity test. And social media provides to us the opportunity to refine our view of the purity test. We listen to Pod Save America, or we listen to Ben Shapiro, or we listen, you know what I mean? We read the posts we want to read. We follow Reddit to the things that we want to do, right? We have our friends on Facebook, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But on balance, good or bad, right? Good or bad. and I think you got to say both. I think that if you really believe that it's all good, which I don't think any of us actually believe that, or if you believe that it's all bad, which I suspect that some of us, I don't believe it's all bad, that some of you believe, then I would simply say that only a Jedi deals in absolutes. That's what I think about that, right? Which is itself an absolutist statement and a paradox. So I'm just saying that there is far less true black and white. You know, when you have a Senate that's doing this, it's a gravitation toward a black and white view of the world, and a vilification of the others. I just think the world has way more gray, and I think that one of the ethical dilemmas, I wanted to say the word ethics sometime during this class time we have together, but one of the ethical dilemmas that you're going to face is wrestling with just an increasingly polarized population, you know, where you can't even just say, oh, I don't know about that. And you know what I mean? And then boom, here comes the Twitter mob after you. He didn't know about it. He didn't genuflect properly at the right time in the right place.
Look at that guy on the fence about something.
Yeah, look at that guy still gathering information and thoughtfully. What an a-hole. You know, that guy. Right? You know, how dare. No, this is no time to be on the fence. Unless you're processing, hello. Well, everybody has to be post-processed. Nobody can be in the process, right? You know, and similar, honestly, and we'll get to this one, but similarly, you know, one of my massive pet peeves today is silence is violence. Silence is not actually violence, and when everything's violence, nothing is violence, and the term loses all of its meaning. But silence is violence is another way of saying, if you don't agree with me now, and say the words I need you to say, then I'm just assuming that you're the part of the others. It is an extreme form, in my view. It's an extreme form. Oh, and you get to disagree with me. Voila, welcome to Dr. K's class. Twitter mob will come after me, I'm sure. But I mean, you know, you get to, in the real world, you get to say, I don't know how I feel yet. I don't know, I'm chewing. I mean, unless I'm a senator and there's a point where you got to vote. Then there's a point and you have to come to the conclusion and make your vote. But typically life gives you chew time. And some people go quick to the conclusion and other people take a lot more cook time to get there. And also in an environment where it's so unsafe to risk saying anything, there is a time when it's not a bad idea to just shut up for a sec and understand more what the dynamics are, you know? Because I think we've all had the moment of being like, yeah, the thing, and then you're like, and you learn and you do some research, you're like, ah, crap, did I really do the thing? Because once I understood better, you know, I sent around that email that the kid was going to die of leukemia if I didn't send a card to his to his hospital room, and then you find out he's been dead for 5 years, and you feel like a schmuck. But you wanted to, you know what I mean? You wanted to, like, you were excited, you were gullible, you wanted the virtue signal maybe a little bit, and we all, that virtue signaling is across the political spectrum, right? It all has to do with, you know, confirming to your tribe, your tribal allegiance. And it is, I'll tell you, and I'll just say this, one of my kind of badges of honor is I really love it when I have a post on, I've been less and less involved, but I've done a bunch of Facebook Lives because that's kind of my way of venting, I guess, about certain things. I really, really love it when I get creamed as a sellout by both my liberal friends and my conservative friends. You know, to me, that's like mission accomplished. Like, you know, nobody knows where I'm, you know, I'm just trying to, because I'm still exploring the studio space. You know what I mean?
Everyone is equally upset. You're happy.
And when everybody is equally upset, exactly. Because I feel like, because I think that these days, all of the black and white thinkers in my life, on social media mostly, but that's part of my life. You know what I mean? That's an extension. But when I can get the black and white thinkers on both sides seriously pissed because I was trying to explore the nuance, you know what I mean? I think that I'm just because what I'm trying to do is just bring more nuance. You know what I mean? I hold so few like things to be absolute truths, especially as they just relate to how we ought to roll with this whole humanity thing. We're all fake until we make, right? We're all basically faking humanity while we figure stuff out. That's where we are, right? But the tribe demands allegiance, and it demands certainty, and it demands it now. And there is a penalty to be paid if you don't execute on the certainty that the tribe demands of you. And social media just really, really has a tendency to reinforce it, because the tribe becomes more and more exclusive, and you're blocking everybody right around you. That there was a guy, I'm not even going to mention his name, but it was a guy that I followed on Twitter for I don't know, it has to be at least 5 years. One of my favorite people on Twitter, because it was just like cool stuff, interesting stuff. Love the personality, love the spunk. And he began to get like more and more political, you know, just over time, just get more and more political. And I'm cool with that. But there was a point at which he like raises some issue, and then somebody is just like, you know, I don't know, like why, you know, whatever. I don't agree with that. And then he began to like just sort of like copy the blocked, you know, it would just be like blocked. And then there'd be like a screenshot of him blocking whoever it was. But it wasn't like the people were like, oh yeah, whatever, you know, racist group X gonna kill you. It wasn't, you know, it was nothing like that. It was more just like, I don't know, man, that just seems like I'm not seeing that. Blocked, you know, it's like, you know, and when that happened, then I just, after a while, it was probably the 10th time that I watched this guy, you know, just block somebody for simply a disagreement, that I just like, this is toxic. This is now toxic. And I just unfollowed him. I'm like, I'm not going to see your cool post. This was on Twitter. I'm not going to see your cool post that I got a lot of joy out of, because your toxicity, I have to stop and process the toxin and get it out of my blood, you know? And it wasn't worth it to me. I'm not saying that was like the morally correct thing. I'm just saying for me, it was no longer worth it. But that's the danger, right? That's the danger. That we have an ability to totally create an echo chamber in an absolutely unprecedented way. And I think even more so than pre-social media. Yeah.
I think people, like, it's hard to like grow. It's hard to have your opinions challenged and to like actually be conflicted on something you thought was true, and then like adapt and change that when presented with new stuff. I think the easiest way for people to deal with that is to just block, or like not look at it, or go sit in an echo chamber, right? You can just like only see stuff that reinforces what you already think. Yeah. And the reality is if your viewpoint or opinion or stance or whatever you want to call it, your thought or your 2 cents is so fragile that somebody saying something with like even nuance or that's against it is gonna ruin it for you. You know, yeah. Is that really something that you want to continue to like hold? That's right.
Well, and one of the things that happens, we're about out of time, but one of the things that happens when you try to have discussion, I did one today. I was off social media for all of June, and I've been off for, I don't know, since a chunk of September, and only intermittently. Like I was so upset one day, I just had to jump on Facebook just to post a Foo Fighters video, just because, you know what I mean? Like that was my involvement. Like I will jump on Facebook to share the joy of the Foo Fighters. But I got to leave now. You know, I'm not going to stay at your party. I just wanted to put that on the CD player and leave. I dropped one just today, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to catch some crap. It's one of my more liberal friends who was ripping on a politician for stating that America was not a democracy. Now that's factual, okay? Yes. It's a democratic republic, but it is a representative form of government. It is not a pure democracy. And just in the strictest sense. And then what happens is, even some of you that are my leftist friends, that are right here right now, might be going, "Oh yeah, he's dog whistling, he's dog whistling the Proud Boys, or whatever."
You're such a shill.
I am, exactly. I'm a cuck, whatever I am, right? But which is really close to Chuck. Turns out it's not lost on me. But I'm just trying to say that or maybe as opposed to dog whistling, I'm actually just stating a sort of a constitutional fact. I'm not even arguing in favor of it. You know what I mean? I'm just like, well, but isn't that true? And all I put was, well, I mean, that's not incorrect, is it? I mean, that's actually true, right? You know what
We're
I
in
mean?
like post-truth. Like you could say this desk is in front of me is a red desk, and somebody is bound to be like, no, that's a red desk or a white desk or something, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, right. Or I
why
understand
can we
that.
argue something that's factually true? Why
Right.
is that up for argument?
And the problem is there are reasons why down in the nuance, the notion of what is in fact factually true becomes a really interesting question, right? And the lines get also blurry way the heck down there, right? But it is true, accepting any reasonable and normal definition of democracy, that America is not a democracy. It is a democratic republic, which has aspects of both democracy and Republican, form of government. But all I'm saying is, I see people like ripping a politician. And what they're really trying to say is, I don't like that politician and his or her, politics, or policy. But the argument isn't actually about that. And when you say something like this, you're like, oh, so you think, like, I don't think I said that, did I? I don't think I said that. And I occasionally do it just to troll, for the same reason that I'm playing Eddie Van Halen music today in honor of the most amazing guitarist, Eddie Van Halen, and just to see if these videos get blocked. So, in which case, I'll edit it out and we'll repost, and we should be fine. But I'm just saying. And we're going to take us out with some Eddie as well. I think we need to, just for good measure. But no, anyway, there's a lot of really killer, great comments. And it's just too much, and I gotta go back and relook right now like I do after class. But we're out of time. I hope this is interesting. What I want you to really be thinking about is, how do you make that decision in your own life? How do you decide, like Devin said, would it be an ethical dilemma for you to go to work for Facebook? For some of you, absolutely. For others of you, not at all. For others of you, it's like, well, what's the price point? I can be bought, but it's got to be high enough, And others like, there's no price. Anyway, the arrival of social media is one of the most world-changing social advances, right? And as Clay Shirky said probably in Here Comes Everybody, that the technology doesn't become impactful until it stops being interesting. Where the technology is not the point, it simply is interesting because of the impact on society. When it comes to social media, we are solidly there. So here's what I'd like you to do, okay? We're out of time. Sorry. I still want to grow this document. If you wouldn't mind, I'm going to probably build like a little, a little assignment or something to just have you jump in and just contribute. Read it, give your thoughts about it, edit it. You don't have to put even comments. Just it's a shared document. It's a wiki model. And just drop your thoughts in. Don't be malicious and delete other people's stuff if you don't agree with it, but drop a comment about it. Do that sometime. I don't know how we'll count that, but I'll have some accountability on Canvas where you can say, I tweaked the social media document, so that hopefully we've got this living document that I can kind of leverage and, use it to guide the discussion. And I think that's probably about it for today. So I can stick around for a few more minutes and discuss, talk, whatever. And in the meantime, let's see. Yeah. I did this one in 2810, but it's just so good.